What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another King Arthur Legends Rise video. Alright guys, I know many of you guys have now started playing this game, getting the hang of it, but there is a lot you still need to know about, and a lot of us beta players, alpha players, etc. have some information for you, specifically revolving around free-to-play heroes. Now, I do have a pay-to-win account. This is my free-to-play account, the one that I started with you guys. I'm slowly playing along and trying to get everything done. You guys can see here, I'm now moving on to Chapter 2. I've not had too much time to play on it, but my pay-to-win account, I am already done all the hard chapters, normal chapters, most of the tower, etc. So, I'm not really focusing on that account because it's not relatable, so I wanted to make sure I focused here. Now, one thing to note is if you are going to be free-to-play, you absolutely want to focus on rare characters. Those are going to be your bread and butter in terms of how far you can get in this game, and they're going to carry you fairly heavily. I want to go over some of these units with you guys and make sure that everybody at least has a general idea of who to focus on and what to focus on, and which ones are going to be primarily your top units to push you further in content. Alright, so let's go through some of these now. Remember, these are going to be very much related with their relics, so if you don't have a relic for a certain unit, it's going to make a very, very big difference, but I'm going to focus on which relics with which units you want to get. And in order to get relics, you do need to summon with the relic tokens, of course, and you cannot use diamonds for those, so keep that in mind. Now, one of the first ones that come to mind, there are going to be two major units here. Rosier, for example, here is going to be one of your main units, especially for farming bosses, and she is going to be great for Gorg, especially for EXP pots and gold. Specifically here, it's going to be her fire relic. Her fire relic is pretty damn insane. Now, her frost one's not bad, but her fire one is even better. So what you see here, and this is actually good for PvP as well too, because of her multi-attacks. Now let's go over each one of these. The fire relic here gives you the following: attacks one enemy 3 times. You can see she has multi-attacks, decent damage, it's not that big, but she does have a 50% chance to inflict bleed for 2 turns, and this is where Gorg is great, and the multi-attacks is great for Pivot as well too, the boar. The second skill here, the Cackling Banshee, HP recovery, recovers 50% of missing HP. When affected by a buff, she gains hit accuracy 2 for 4 turns, which is crazy. And then when affected by debuff, she gains attack speed for 4 turns. Now remember, here this is all based off of you leveling up your skill, so this is on max skill. You can of course reduce this and see it for less, but these are for max skill usages. So in the beginning it's not going to be quite as high. It'll be 10% here, and I think the turns are actually down to 2 turns a pop, so keep that in mind. Alright, now her last skill here, must sacrifice 10% of her HP, attacks enemy 5 times, deals total damage of 355% of attack, 80% chance for the last 2 hits to inflict bleed for 1 turn, so again great for Gorg. And then also for the fact that she hits 5 times, great for the boar, and the 40% chance to recharge Rosier's attack gauge by 100% and trigger Hook of Death. Now if you don't know what Hook of Death does, deals damage attack to all enemies, and applies bleed for 1 more turn. So this unit here is absolutely bonkers for a rare, so she's going to be one of your primary units to max out. Her frost one again is not bad. It does very, very similar things. She will give you a couple different things here. Her ult at the end here is not as good. She's more of an AoE unit here, you guys can see, but her fire version is crazy good. So Rosier, absolutely one of those units you definitely want to focus on early on. Now another big one is Cormac. That's right, Cormac, especially with his frost relic, is going to be big, the Earthbreaker. Okay, Cormac is actually a great unit because of his passives and because he has fantastic skills. Now if you look at here, his passive Irish Memorial gains defense increase for 1 for 2 turns when he's attacking. There are 3 or more enemies. He has 100% chance to inflict evasion rate decrease 2 on all enemies as well, and he also attacks enemies damage 20%, attack plus 10%. He has 20% attack plus defense plus 10 attack. Okay, 90% chance to trigger when an ally is hit, heals all allies for 18.9% of Cormac's defense. So super tanky unit. And again, these are 3 and 3. You'll have 1 and 1 obviously when you advance him. Now why his frost relic is so good is a couple of reasons. Number 1, his basic attack does hit 2 hits, 50% chance to inflict evasion rate decrease for 3 turns. This is great for PvP and both for PvE. And then Viking Frenzy right here does total damage to the enemy. And then his ult is where it gets good. Attacks all enemies 2 times, deals additional damage to all enemies according to number of enemies. 1 enemy, total damage is 7%, attack plus 3%, 7% of attack plus 3% of defense. 2 enemies is 20% of attack plus 8% defense. And look at this, 3 enemies or more, he can pretty much wipe out a whole team. 40% attack plus 18% defense. Again, this is with max skill, of course, but he is absolutely amazing as a unit, especially with the frost relic. So if you guys can focus on Cormac with frost, you are going to be cooking units left and right, okay? Now, we could talk about Morgan. Morgan is there, but I'm going to focus strictly on rares. Morgan is top tier, guys. You definitely want to use Morgan whenever you can. I still think Tristan is amazing too. And with Cormac too, don't worry, even if you don't have the Frost Relic, his standard Stormclaw is really nice too. He's good at killing AoEs. He's great at pretty much doing sweeps all over the place. You guys can see here his Thundering Runes, for example, does provide a similar skill as a second Frost one, right? His ultimate skill here is exactly the same as the one over here, and then his ultimate here actually does allow him to hit a unit for 5 times, which is of course good for the boar. So both of these actually are very valid. Cormac is actually one of the best characters in the game, and he's only a rare, so you should definitely be using him. Now let's switch places to a little bit of an assassin, right? Let's talk about Kay. Kay you get early on, and Kay is amazing for both her Wind and her Frost Relic. So her Wind Relic, of course, you guys get right away. She does have the following: when attacking, 100% chance to grant attack increase to all stag units. So if you have stag units in there, like Tristan, for example, she'll provide them that. Charges all stag units attack gauge by 20%, which also gives them faster turns. And most stag units that I use are usually they're fast units, so it's even faster attacks, right? At the start of the battle, 100% chance to gain evasion rate 2 for the rest of the battle, which means she's dodging almost everything in sight. 100% chance to gain effect accuracy 1 for 2 turns, and 100% chance to gain CS damage increase 1 for the rest of the battle. So incredible passives, and making her actually really hard to kill and very, very evasive. So her skills. First skill, attack one enemy 5 times, fairly easy, 0 cost, super good for the boar especially. Attacks one enemy 4 times, total damage 208. Last hit grants CS rate 2 for 2 turns and CS damage 1 for 2 turns. So this is the one you want to start with usually, just to buff yourself. And then her last attack, attacks all enemies 4 times. The last 2 hits deal additional damage if the target's HP is below 30%. So really powerful. Now her Frost one is even, I personally like the Frost one better. Some people like the Wind one better. The reason why I like this one better, she has the recovery disruption on all enemies, which is great if you're dealing with anyone who's a healer. And then her last skill here is pretty decent, but it's the recovery one that I really enjoy. But again, if you have Morgan, you don't really need this, so you can stick with this one here and just do a ton of damage. The fire one's not bad. I find that it's not as good as the Wind one, so definitely the Wind one's probably the best. But if you're not using Morgan, which you should be, this here will give you what you need for recovery disruption for 2 turns. But again, use Morgan, use the Wind version of her, she'll carry you throughout. Okay, now let's switch gears here for a second and talk about healers. Now there's 2 really good healers that I like, actually 3 really good healers that I like. First one is one you're going to get right away actually. So the game does a good job providing you what you need from the get-go to move up in this game and do well, and that's Turin. Turin's really good. Her main one is going to, you're going to get the Wind one, which is nice. It's a good buff and a heal, but the Frost one I find is a little bit better. So you guys can see here, attacks an enemy, each point of resistant increased damage, extra damage per hit, heals an ally for 10.7% of Turin's max HP. Of course, this is a max level, right? This is why I like this one better. Grants recovery over time. If the weather is night, grants effect resistance and defense decrease for 4 turns. And then the last skill over here, 50% independent chance to grant each ally recovery 1, and then 100% independence to give allies the heals. Now you get this one here. The difference here is it grants allies effect accuracy increase 2 and defense increase 2, which is actually amazing. And then in nighttime, she grants recovery over time too. So both are actually really strong. Just her heal is not as strong in the Wind version. The Frost version is better, but both of these work extremely well. So she's actually one of the better healers for rares, and you get her for free, so use her for sure. Now Sarah deserves a little bit of a shout out, and same with Clementine. Now I like Clementine better for one reason and one reason only. She has the ability to remove dots. She has the ability to do action gauge reduction on enemies, which some are resistant, but some are not, so it does actually help. And her basic attack does a pretty big heal, and this applies pretty much to all of her versions, where she removes some sort of a debuff or abnormal status or a dot. So I actually do enjoy Clementine's abilities a lot more, but Sarah is no slouch herself and definitely deserves a little bit of recognition. You guys can see here, she does remove 1 buff from allies. She does remove buff out from allies and actually has a fairly decent heal. And then even here, she has a fairly decent heal. This applies pretty much to all of her skills, except for the Wind version, which actually gives you a defense increase 1 for 2 turns, allowing you to take some hits and survive, right? So overall, I do find her Wind and her Frost ones to be the best, but both of those are going to be fairly big. Now, we also have Anguish here. which I actually do like as a character as well too. Anguish has the Frost version that you normally get, and this is great for Gorgon as well. So he attacks enemies 5 times, provides chill. Again, over here you guys can see if the target is a dot, steals all of their buffs, and then of course you have chill over here. Now if you get this fire version instead, you actually get the burn. So this is actually really nice. The burn aspect is much better for fights like Gorgon, and then also bleed with the wind version, right? So overall, Anguish is a very good character with great dots. So you actually do want to use him if you plan to do a lot of Gorgon farming. Not a necessity, but still a really good unit. Rosier actually beats him out in terms of all the things she provides, but still a unit you definitely don't want to miss out on. And all these rare units are super easy to get. A couple honorable mentions here as well too. Bond is really good. Bond does a lot of critical hits, a lot of multi-hits, and a lot of AoE. So very good, and also scales off attack speed. So very good combination with Tristan, especially if you plan to use them. And then another one here that I really wanted to mention as well too is going to be, where is she? Hold on a sec. Who am I missing out on here? Is it Frederick? It's a he, sorry, not a she. Yeah, Frederick. Okay, let's go over Frederick. So I'm looking at my list of people that I want to talk about. Frederick, here we go. Frederick, there he is. Okay, so the fire version, right? So the fire version here attacks enemies, has a heal as well too, and he also heals all allies, trigger buff transfer on an ally as well. And then the last skill over here, attack all enemies, and then 25% chance to trigger steal buff. So if you're looking to fight enemies with a lot of different buffing abilities, he's actually a great way to take those buffs away, steal them, and then also heal your ally. So don't sleep on him. Pretty damn good unit. It has very easy, has his best relic, I think, to start with as well. So definitely focus on Frederick if you are looking for a debuffer, buffer, buff stealer, healer at the same time. Pretty much does it all. All right, King Arthur. A lot of people have been asking about King Arthur. Arthur's decent. He's decent. You get both 2 relics with him right away, which is nice. So he can be a fairly decent buffer and a DPS. But overall, in comparison to the other rares, I find he's lacking pretty much in all departments. You will use him throughout the game, but you're not really going to focus on him too much. So those are my suggestions on the best rare units to focus on. Let me know if you guys have anyone else that I might have missed out on that should deserve some honorable mentions. Put them in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.